Hi YouTube, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery. Visit me on the web, caltoncutlery.com. So today's a regular work day, but and I've got some really cool neck knives I need to finish up. I guess you can see a couple of them right quick. These are the little neck knives that I make. This one I think is in 1095 and Cocobolo. So these just need sharpened up and kind of tuned up, and got some handles to grind on some other ones, and you know, just all kind of just normal knife work to do for the day. But I wanted to go ahead and do an update on the CZ bobwhite review while it was still fresh in my head. I ended up going pheasant hunting for the first time ever with a friend of mine day before yesterday, and with this shotgun took my first two pheasants ever. It was pretty awesome. The hunt itself was not quite what I expected, but it was a really good time. We saw, oh gosh, I think we saw probably a half a dozen birds, something like that. Saw a couple of cottontails. It was a good day out with my buddy and his friend Gus. Which, Gus, if you ever watch this, dude, you did awesome. He is just a super friendly, happy dog. Nothing ever gets him down. He's just cool. One of these days I'll probably introduce him to my labs and see how well they get along. But anyway, so I got to thinking, you know, so I bought this CZ bobwhite 8 months ago, something like that. And, you know, I've been kind of working on it ever since, you know, off and on. And that day before yesterday, I realized that it's pretty much as close to where I want it to be as I think it's likely to get. I mean, there's a couple of slight changes I think I'll make here and there. But boy, well, I fired 2 shots and got 2 pheasants, and the first shot of the day felt a little, you know, a little off, a little slow and a little clumsy. And that second one, which happened like 3 hours later, boy, it felt just as smooth as I think it will ever get. Until at least I get a couple, you know, a couple more 100 rounds and worth of practice and everything. So anyway, so the first video I shot was kind of an initial impressions type video. This one right here, I'm going to go over some of the same stuff. But first I'm going to tell you kind of where I am as far as shotgunning, and that way you kind of, you know, I'm not like a really experienced shotgunner, so a review of a shotgun from a really experienced shotgunner and pretty much a beginner, which is what I am, I think would be quite a bit different. So if you know where I am at as far as the shooting sports, then maybe that'll make a little bit more sense as to what I like and what I don't like in the shotgun. So I have not ever been a shotgunner. I am in my mid-40s. You know, now I've hunted my entire life, but I've always hunted with rifles, with handguns, a little bit with archery, a lot with a slingshot, and a lot with air rifles, pellet guns, pellet pistols, that sort of thing. Never really done a lot of bird hunting. Like I said, day before yesterday was the first time ever that I've gone pheasant hunting, and that same buddy took me out dove hunting twice, about a month ago or so, somewhere around in there. I think it was right after opening day, and that was the first time I'd ever been dove hunting. I mean, you know, we get the collared doves around here, and I typically, I mean, those taste really good, but I get those with either a trap or with a pellet gun. I've never shot one with a shotgun. So, you know, there's an awful lot of firsts with me and shotgunning lately. Now, as far as rifles and handguns are concerned, man, I have got tens of thousands of rounds into both, maybe even hundreds of thousands of rounds if you include pellet rifles. Now you're going to have to bear in mind the AC unit just kicked on. I've got an elk and the pheasants from the other day hanging in the meat cooler, so I don't know if you can hear it or not, but that's what that is. So anyway, I used to shoot competitively with handguns. You can look up a thing called ICORE, I-C-O-R-E, an International Confederation of Revolver Enthusiasts. I used to do that back before my boy was born, and you know, we'd go through 2,000 or 3,000 rounds a week in practice. I mean, if you want to be good, you gotta put in the time and you gotta put in the practice. Rifles, and I'll lump pellet rifles in with that. You know, I've been shooting those since I was, well, I don't remember not shooting a pellet rifle ever. So pretty young. I hunt deer, elk, antelope, Small game, I like bunny hunting. I go shoot turkeys as often as I can, but here in Wyoming you can shoot those with rifles, so I usually just shoot them with a rifle. Never shot a turkey with a shotgun. In fact, I think those doves that I shot that first day were probably the first birds of any kind I've ever killed with a shotgun before. So that's where I'm at as far as experience in the shooting sports as it relates to shotguns. I've probably gotten maybe 1,000 rounds into shotguns, split amongst like half a dozen of them, and so pretty new to this whole sport. So the shotgun itself, this is a CZ bobwhite. It is the I guess it's the Sportsman's Warehouse version with the color case hardening on the receiver and the trigger guard. It's a real pretty shotgun. I'll get a little bit more light. So a really nice shotgun. It was incredibly stiff when I bought it. It is, I mean, to the point where, I was trying to put the thing together in the store for like 20 minutes. And then one of the other guys came over, one of the store associates came over and said, yeah, these are just really stiff. Put it together and smacked it, and that's what put the forend on. Now it's getting considerably easier to break down. It breaks down fairly easy. It goes together a little bit tighter. And of course now it's going to give me grief while we're, there we go. So it goes together considerably easier now than what it did when it was brand new. The action is still a little on the stiff side, and this has got, I've been using grease on the hinge here, and then regular gun oil or rim oil, or that break-free oil, the stuff that comes in a little black bottle, on the lifter and around the lug area and the safety. And it is it's getting broke in. It is not loose by any means. If we go now, it is cocked here, so that's the break open lever all the way to the side, and it still won't break over. Like I said, I think I have somewhere 500 rounds or so through it. And so I think it's going to be one of those that breaks in really slow, but probably once it gets broke in, it's probably going to stay snug, for a long time. That's what's my impressions with it. Now, the things I love about this shotgun are the basics, right? It's a double barreled, it's got interchangeable chokes, and it comes with choke tubes, 5 choke tubes. I love the fact that and it's got 2 triggers. So I love the fact that I can do, 2 different chokes, 2 different barrels, 2 different triggers. So, both of those pheasants that I shot, they were both coming towards me. One of them, Gus kicked up and it was coming towards me, and so as it's coming closer, I'm thinking to myself, as I'm, because I just had the gun, just down here. So as it's coming up, as the safety's coming off, as I'm making my mount, picking up the sights, which I did add a rear sight to it, and I'm picking up that bird, I'm thinking closer is better, right? And then all of a sudden in the back of my head I thought, well, wait a minute, if I don't shoot pretty soon and give that shot time to spread out a little bit, it's just going to completely annihilate that bird. And at that same time it turned to the right, or the first one did, and I let it get out another 5 or 10 yards or so, and then selected the first trigger, which is the right barrel, which I have an improved cylinder choke in, and it dropped him just the way you see on TV, I would guess, or on YouTube. So I like being able to choose in between the chokes, or you could put 2 different loads in here also. When I start predator hunting, I think with this thing, I may end up having like a lead BB shot in one, or probably like the lead BB in the modified side. And then probably maybe a buckshot in the improved cylinder side. So I really like that. The safety is a manual safety. Excuse me. It does not go on automatically, which I love that. I really don't like it when the safety comes on automatic, because it's just something else to have to kind of remember what's going on. And this is a very, very simple shotgun, and I really like that. The things that I changed about this shotgun. So first off, I ended up putting a tritium front sight on it. Now you won't be able to see that it glows because it's too bright in here. But this one, it did not have the same threads on it. So I ended up having to drill that hole out a little bit and then tap it to make this tritium front bead fit. And that is really nice. Not only is it tritium, but it's also a little bit taller, which we'll get to that part in a second. I also added a rear sight. Now, I understand that with shotguns, rear sights and sometimes even mid beads and sometimes even sights, it seems like it's all over the board. You know, a lot of the videos, the guys are saying, hey, you aim a rifle, you point a shotgun. Well, like I said, I've been shooting rifles and pistols for a long time, and I, competed in, handgun shooting. Now, that is an action shooting type of deal, so it's not like slow aimed fire for the most of the part. It's a time type deal. It's the thing where, they'll set up a whole, like a plate rack, so you got this stand that's got, half a dozen or a dozen plates on it. And then when you hit them, they fall over. And then you'll have like a man-sized silhouette over here, and then you'll have, more plates, here and here and here, right? And you're supposed to start off like this, and then they kick a buzzer, and then you pick your gun up, and then you bring it up, and then you mow down that plate rack, and then you reload, and then you shoot into this, and then you run over here and you shoot into that. It's a very, very fast-paced shooting. We use sights in that. Absolutely. You've got one projectile coming out every time you squeeze a trigger. And so you had a front and a rear sight, and boy, let me tell you, if you've never seen that kind of shooting or experienced it, it is insanely fast. Well, just look up Jerry Mikulak or Michalak. I'm not sure how you pronounce his last name. Look that dude up and see what he does with a revolver, and he's using sights that entire time. So for me, when I took this out dove hunting, I didn't do really well because I didn't have a rear sight. And I think me being so used to looking for that rear sight, I'd mount the gun and I'd pull it up, and I think since that rear sight wasn't there, I kept hunting for it and looking for it, and by that time the bird was gone. Now that I put this rear sight on there, boy, there it is. I'm looking at it, or I'm looking through it more or less, find the bird, and everything works the way it should. Now, I couldn't find a rear sight that was made for this shotgun. So what I did was I rummaged around in my parts bin, and this is actually the sight off of a Benjamin 392 multi-pump air rifle. So I'd taken it off and mounted, I'd cut dovetails into the receiver on that rifle and mounted a scope onto it. So what I did was I took this rear sight and I ground the bottom of it off, because they're supposed to fit over a air rifle barrel. Ground the bottom of it off to where it was mostly flat. Drilled and countersunk 2 holes in there, and then drilled and tapped 2 holes in the rib that corresponded to those. Mounted it on there with some blue Loctite, and then drifted in the rear sight. Now this sight is adjustable. There's a set screw that goes in there that you can lift it up if you need to. It's actually I actually ended up having to file out the center of this part to be able to get this low enough to where I could see through it. And then it's adjustable left and right with these 2 set screws right here. So it's a very simple sight. And then I had to recut the rear notch and then make it wider to fit the wide tritium bead. But boy, it just works really slick. Now, this is one of the things that I may change in the future. Now that I know about how tall that rear sight needs to be, a nice a tritium rear sight for like a handgun would work really nice on that. And the reason I like the tritium idea is because, I do some predator control work. A friend of mine calls up and says, hey, we got a coyote getting into the chickens. Well then, I'll go out and hang out with him, wait for the coyote to come around. And so a set of night sights really helps in stuff like that. You know, seeing as how these shotguns are pretty much, you know, 100 yard and under, I don't really feel the need to mount a scope on it, and I really have I haven't been able to get along very well with the red dots. So a nice set of night iron sights, I think, will be the ticket for me. So, yeah, so the front and the rear sight, I put that on there. And then I did end up adding a recoil pad. I think this is a Packmeyer. Yeah, Packmeyer. And this was a grind to fit. I want to say it was a medium. But anyway, got that installed. That really helps with those, you know, some of those 3-inch mag loads, just to kind of soften it up against your shoulder. Also, I was having a heck of a time getting down low enough to where I could see the bead before I put the rear sight on. And that was another reason I put the rear sight on, was because it brings that line of sight between the taller front bead and a rear sight. It brings your face up off of the recoil, or off of the stock, about 1/4 of an inch or so. And that really made a big difference for me. Also, the recoil pad lengthened my pull, which puts my face farther down here. I mean, like I said, it doesn't seem like much, but it does put my face a little bit farther back, which is more into the slope section, so that I can get down a little bit lower and be able to see my sights. I also put the sling swivel studs on here. The rear one is just, you know, you just screw it into the stock. The front one is a tap type job. So you've got, you know, a little bitty mount right there. And then you drill and tap 2 holes on the underside of your rib, which this rib is hollow, by the way. And then you screw that mount into the rib, and then the sling swivel goes on top of it. I got some notes here. Let's see. Okay, so I went over what I love about it. The 2 barrels, the 2 chokes, the 2 triggers, the manual safety, the fact that it's breaking in nice, the tritium bead, the rear sight, the sling and the recoil pad, and the addition of the recoil pad and the sight kind of got my face down enough to where, you know, I can line it up. Now, how it shoots. So like I said, I'm still a pretty beginner type shotgunner. Now the recoil off these shotguns is, with some of the heavier loads, it's a bit stiff. You know, typically my deer and elk rifle is a 270 or a 308 Winchester. I do have a 338 Win Mag, and it shoots really, really good with Sierra 250 grain Game Kings. Recoil on that is a bit stiff also. This is quite a bit more than a 338, especially when you're shooting slugs or some of the 3-inch, like the 3-inch number 4 buck. I think that's 41 pellet, something like that, like 1 ounce and 5/8, if I remember right. It can be a bit stiff, but the nice thing about this being so simple is, like with a pump shotgun, when I mount that and I touch it off, that hand is coming back with the pump, okay? Well, as it's coming back, it can't really hold the muzzle down because it's coming back to work the action. With this double, you know, there's no action to worry about. So pretty much when you know you're going to touch off one of them heavy ones, you just grip that front end and then that holds it down. Now they are still stiff, but it's very, very controllable. Now I'm not saying I'd want to lay down at a bench and shoot 50 rounds of slugs, you know, that's not my definition of fun. But it is controllable, and it doesn't, I mean, it's stiff, but it doesn't hurt. Now with slugs, these barrels are very well regulated, okay? So my last sight-in target, once I got this rear sight where I wanted it to be, I want to shoot birdshot, so 7.5s or 6s. I want to shoot, I've got a really good hand load that has lead BBs, like 1 ounce and 3/8 of lead BBs, which I hear is really, really good for coyotes, foxes, raccoons, things like that. And then, you know, double-aught buck, and then slugs. And so the other day I took 2 Chewy boxes, you know, that the dogs' food comes in, and I put rosin paper that you use to tape off like windows and stuff when you're painting a house, and then put it over, you know, both of them, taped them down, went back 30 yards, shot the right barrel with the improved cylinder at the right target and the left barrel with the modified choke at the left target. I put a slug in the center of both boxes, just as centered up as you could ask for, right? And then shot, I think 7.5s, and then the lead BB load, and then the buckshot, you know, at the corresponding target. Then I ended up, I got a couple of boxes of that Brennicky Green Lightning, I think. Now those are supposed to be some serious slugs. And you're not supposed to shoot them in anything tighter than an improved cylinder. So the Winchester PowerPoint regular rifled slugs were perfectly centered to the sights, all right? I mean, if it had been, you know, a soda can put out there, I can hit a soda can with each barrel with the same sight in, so they're regulated perfectly at 30 yards. That Brennicky slug on the right barrel cut the hole on the Winchester slug, which is what I was aiming at. So just, I mean, you couldn't ask for any better. The buckshot shoots a little bit low. I mean, the top edge of the target is even with the slug hole. The lead BBs are almost perfectly centered, right? To where it's like 60% of the pattern is above and 40% of the pattern is below the slug hole. Well, maybe more like 70-30, something like that, which is right in line with the birdshot. And both the birdshot did about the same thing. With the point of aim, 70% of the birdshot was above the slug hole and 30% of it was below. Now that was at 30 yards, so I would guess at more like 50 yards, which I would think that would be about the limit of your birdshot, you know, effectiveness. Maybe at that distance, you know, I mean, I have no idea how far it drops at that. I haven't tested it yet. But it's pretty well regulated. Now also, I haven't really had very many surprises with this, as in like, you know, I throw in like Federal 7.5s, you know, an ounce and an eighth or so, regular target load, shooting way to the left or way to the right or way up or way down, or, you know, any of the loads having real big holes in them or anything, you know, the patterns. It's just been every load that I've shot through it that I've patterned acted kind of the way that you would think that it would act, which is really, really cool. Let's see, there was something else I was going to go over. Solid, no, well regulated. I can't remember what it was. Oh, the rear sight. Another thing with the rear sight. So you see guys that are shooting the tactical shotguns, right? And they'll have like a ghost ring sight on here. They don't use just like a regular open sight. One thing that I found back when I was racing with a revolver, at one point I ended up trying to go for one of those ghost ring sights, because I always just had the regular, you know, the regular front sight and a regular, you know, notched rear sight like this one. Well, I tried going for that ghost ring sight, you know, for a couple of matches just to see how I liked it. And it was really cool. Your eye does center that front sight in the ghost ring sight fairly well. I didn't really notice it being any faster or slower than just a regular rear sight. But what was really cool was that when I took it off and I went back to a regular open rear sight, it was almost like my eye or my brain kind of had gotten used to that ghost ring sight. And it did the same thing with just a regular rear sight. It was almost like my brain kind of imagined that rear sight, instead of being, you know, like this, was like this and was centering that front post in there, you know, just like it was a ghost ring sight. So if you're thinking about putting, you know, an open sight on a shotgun, you can kind of think about it like that. Once you get oh, that's what it was. So the biggest thing about having you know, the rear sight on here is that I'm not a really big shotgunner. I might shoot this, you know, like a couple of times a week or, you know, a couple of times a month for the next 2 or 3 months, and then not shoot it at all for 6 months. Well, in 6 months when I pick this up, having that rear sight, I know now that if I put the front sight in the rear sight and put that at a 6 o'clock at 30 yards, I know exactly where the pattern's going to go. Without a rear sight or a mid bead or, you know, some sort of reference in the, the mount might have changed over 6 months, or I forgot, you know, where it patterned. Having that rear sight, now that's no longer an issue. So, you know, like I said, this is absolutely my most favorite shotgun right now. And it seems like now that I've got the sight and the recoil pad and everything kind of worked out, it seems like we do really good work together. And I would only expect that work to get better and better the more and more we get to know each other and you know, get all the little bugs and the kinks worked out. So if you're looking at one of these shotguns, you know, this is my review from, like I said, about a 500 round review from a guy that's just getting started in shotguns. I think I'm going to go talk to the neighbor here pretty soon. He does, he's like on the board of the local trap and skeet club. So I think I'll probably go talk to him once hunting season winds down and I get some work caught up here in the shop. See about going over there and you know, just either becoming a member or paying, you know, every time I go out there or do whatever and get, you know, maybe at least another couple of thousand rounds under my belt with this, and I bet you things will just do nothing but get better. So again, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery, and visit me on the web, caltoncutlery.com. Hope you enjoyed the video, and we will see you next time.